For years, the Beckham family was seen as one of the most united, admired, and polished families in the public eye. A legendary football icon, a global fashion powerhouse, and children who seemed to grow up surrounded by love, discipline, and opportunity. From the outside, it looked flawless, almost untouchable. But behind carefully posed photos and red carpet smiles, tension had been quietly building, and no one truly saw it coming. Until one unexpected social media post changed everything. Late one evening, fans scrolling through their feeds were stopped in their tracks. Brooklyn Beckham, the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham, had shared a message so raw, so emotionally charged that it immediately sent shockwaves through the celebrity world. This wasn't a vague quote or a cryptic caption. It was direct, personal, and impossible to ignore. In his message, Brooklyn suggested that the people closest to him, his own parents, had spread untruths to protect an image. He hinted at manipulation, control, and emotional distance. Most shocking of all, he implied that reconciliation was no longer something he wanted. For a family known for carefully guarding their privacy, this felt like a public rupture. Fans who had followed the Beckhams for decades were stunned. Comment sections filled with disbelief, sympathy, confusion, and debate. How could one of the world's most famous families reach this point? And why now? Brooklyn's words didn't come across as impulsive or careless. They felt heavy, like the result of years of bottled-up frustration finally spilling into the open. Many sensed that this wasn't just about one argument or one misunderstanding. This was deeper. Almost instantly, attention turned to David Beckham. The former football star had always spoken passionately about family, discipline, and being a present father. He often described his children as his greatest achievement, beyond trophies or titles. So when silence followed Brooklyn's post, it only fueled more speculation. Behind the scenes, insiders suggested that emotions were running high on all sides. While Brooklyn appeared determined to speak his truth, those close to David and Victoria reportedly felt blindsided and heartbroken. The idea that such a deeply personal conflict was now playing out publicly made the situation even more painful. What made this moment especially powerful was how it challenged the long-standing narrative around the Beckham family. For years, they represented stability in a world where celebrity families often fractured under pressure. Now, that image was cracking, and the public was watching in real time. As hours passed, fans waited for a response. Would David address the accusations directly? Would the family retreat into silence? Or would this become one of those rare moments where a celebrity dynasty confronts its struggles openly? No matter where people stood, one thing was clear. This wasn't gossip anymore. It was a deeply human story about family, identity, and the cost of growing up under constant public scrutiny. And it was only the beginning. To understand why this moment felt so explosive, you have to understand Brooklyn Beckham's journey, not just as a celebrity child, but as a young man trying to define himself outside one of the most powerful family names in the world. Brooklyn grew up under constant attention. Cameras followed his first public appearances, his teenage years, his friendships, and even his early romantic interests. While many celebrity kids rebel loudly, Brooklyn often appeared quiet, reserved, and careful. He didn't chase controversy. Instead, he searched for direction. Over the years, he explored different paths: photography, modeling, cooking, creative projects. Each one met with intense scrutiny. Critics questioned his choices, doubted his seriousness, and compared him relentlessly to his parents' achievements. Supporters saw a young man trying to carve out his own identity in a world that refused to let him be anonymous. Then came love. When Brooklyn met Nicola Peltz, everything seemed to shift. Those close to him noticed a new sense of confidence and emotional grounding. Their relationship moved quickly, but it appeared deeply intentional. Brooklyn often spoke about feeling understood, supported, and protected in ways he hadn't felt before. Their marriage symbolized more than romance. It represented independence. For Brooklyn, building a life with Nicola meant stepping out from the Beckham shadow and choosing a future on his own terms. But independence can be uncomfortable, especially in families used to close involvement. Rumors of tension began quietly: missed family events, separate holiday plans, subtle changes in online interactions that fans quickly noticed. Nothing was confirmed, but speculation grew that boundaries were being tested and perhaps resisted. What many people overlook is how difficult it can be for parents and adult children to transition roles. For years, David and Victoria were not just parents. They were guides, protectors, decision-makers in a high-pressure world. Letting go doesn't always come easily. especially when fame, legacy, and public perception are involved. From Brooklyn's perspective, the pressure may have felt overwhelming. Every decision scrutinized, every move compared, every relationship discussed publicly. Over time, that pressure can quietly build into resentment, especially if someone feels their voice isn't being heard. By the time Brooklyn shared his emotional message, it felt like a release rather than a reaction, a moment where silence no longer felt possible. Supporters saw courage. Critics saw family matters that should stay private. But few questioned one thing: the pain behind the words felt real. As this chapter unfolded, the public began to realize that this wasn't just a feud. It was a collision between love, independence, and expectations shaped by fame. And while Brooklyn had finally spoken, the world was still waiting to hear from the man known as the family's emotional anchor, David Beckham. As Brooklyn's words continued to circulate, the pressure mounted on David Beckham to respond. For someone who has spent decades managing intense public attention, David understood that every word, or lack of one, would be analyzed, interpreted, and debated. When he finally spoke, it wasn't with anger or denial. It was measured, calm, almost reflective. Rather than addressing specific accusations, David chose to speak broadly about parenting, mistakes, and the challenges young people face in the digital age. He emphasized that children are allowed to make errors, especially publicly, and that guidance and understanding matter more than judgment. To some listeners, this sounded like compassion. To others, it felt like distance. David's tone suggested a father trying to protect his family without escalating a painful situation. He didn't name Brooklyn directly, but the timing made the connection unmistakable. His words seemed designed to lower the temperature, not win an argument. Public reaction was immediate and divided. Supporters praised David's restraint, saying it showed maturity and emotional control. They admired his refusal to publicly challenge his son, interpreting it as an act of love. Many parents resonated with the struggle of watching an adult child make deeply personal decisions under public scrutiny. Others, however, felt the response avoided the heart of the issue. They questioned whether addressing mistakes minimized the depth of Brooklyn's pain. Some wondered if this careful messaging reflected the very image management Brooklyn had criticized. Victoria Beckham, meanwhile, remained publicly silent. For fans who closely follow the family, her quietness spoke volumes. Known for her strength and composure, her absence from the conversation suggested that emotions behind the scenes were raw and unresolved. As media discussion intensified, past moments were re-examined. Old interviews about family unity, past comments about discipline and values. Every detail was reinterpreted through a new lens as people searched for clues they might have missed. What stood out most was how human the situation felt. This wasn't a dramatic feud filled with insults or threats. It was something far more uncomfortable. A slow, emotional disconnect between parents and a son trying to be heard. Experts in family dynamics began weighing in, explaining that conflicts like this are often amplified in high-profile families. Fame adds pressure, expectations, and a permanent audience, making private healing incredibly difficult. For David, the moment marked a shift. No longer just a global sports icon or brand figure, he was now being seen as a father navigating a deeply personal challenge in public view.